If you haven't seen this before, you're about to witness one of the strangest opening moves ever. In this position, Capablanca has black, and it's his move. Pause the video if you want and write down your ideas. Bishop d7. It does look like a joke. Plus there is that rule about not moving the same piece twice in the opening. But here is the thing. There is a very sound long-term idea behind this move. In endgame strategy, Shereshevsky explains it very clearly. Black wants to prepare b5 and then bring the knight to c4. So the bishop drops back to support that pawn advance. Because on f5 it looked active, but it wasn't really doing anything useful. So yes, the move looks strange on the surface, but strategically it makes perfect sense. As the game continues, you can see the idea coming together. The knight heads toward c4, and black gets exactly the kind of position he was aiming for. Now, here is the interesting part. The engine doesn't like bishop d7 at all. It's not even in the top 5. This doesn't mean that the engine is wrong. It probably sees a way to keep the game balanced much later down the line. But that doesn't make this plan any less powerful. In fact, it's a very practical fighting plan for black in a position that's normally quite drawish. Meanwhile, the engine just suggests normal, natural moves like e6 or rook c8. Moves most players would consider anyway. Here we have Alexander Alekhine with black, and it's his move. White just offered a rook trade. Alekhine had an idea which includes keeping the rooks. He played rook g8, preparing h4. If white plays h4 himself, then comes rook g4, followed by f4, and suddenly white is in serious trouble. In the game we saw f3, h4, bishop f2, h takes g, h takes g3, and then rook h8. The idea isn't really to attack directly on the king's side, because white can hold that. The real goal is to slowly drain white's defensive resources. After bishop g1, bishop d6, king f1, rook g8, bishop f2, white is tied down. Then black moves to the queen's side with b5, a5, a4, a takes b, rook a8. And you see the rook is finally infiltrating. This is very human, logical, strategically very clear. But the engine prefers something completely different. It likes trading rooks, followed by king d5, f3, and e4. Certainly black still has something to play for, thanks to the active king, but winning this is much more difficult than the endgame Alekhine reached in the game. And again, the move played in the game is only 4th on the engine's list. According to the machine, even rook b8 is better. So ask yourself, what do you really learn from engine suggestions like rook takes d1 or rook b8? And then compare that to the clear strategic story behind rook g8. Here we have Gligoric versus Smyslov with black to move. Smyslov is a pawn up and already has 2 weaknesses to attack in white's position. But it's not so easy to convert the advantage. If you want, pause the video and try to find a plan for black. Black wants to bring the king toward the g3 pawn, or at least as close as possible. That means a very unusual route. King f8, g7, g6, and later possibly king g5 and king g4. Of course there will be obstacles such as pawn on f7 hanging at some point, but strategically it's perfect. In the game, Smyslov did not even need to finish the plan, because white went for a knight endgame, which is easily winning for black after king e5 and king takes e4. Now, here is where engines and learning can again part ways. The engine actually prefers king e8, which looks super strange and doesn't really show any plan. Smyslov's move is only 5th on the list, and the evaluation even drops from -2.3 to -1.7. So it comes to this: you find a deep logical plan, and the engine says your position is actually worse. Let's look at another classic, Nimzowitsch Rubinstein. White is better developed, the pieces are working together very well, and it's white to move. Take a moment and think, what should white be aiming for here? First, let's look at what the engine suggests. The top move is h3. Then come rook b1, rook c1, doubling the rooks on the e file, and even a3. Nimzowicz's move isn't even in the top 5. And the moment you see that move, you'd probably think the engine is right, because Aaron played knight h1. Nimzowitsch himself explained that the knight heads toward g5 to coordinate with the king's bishop. Basically, the last passive piece joins the attack. After bishop d7, knight f2, rook a e8, rook f e1, rook takes c2, rook takes c2, knight e8 and knight h3, h6 doesn't really help as knight g5 is coming anyway, because h takes g leads to queen h5 checkmate. So what looked like a strange knight retreat turns into a perfectly timed attacking plan. And I'm not trying to say that the engine missed the maneuver, although it did. The real point is this: even if the engine suggested knight h1, most beginners wouldn't understand why. It just looks like white is putting the knight on a bad square for no reason. Now I want to go back to a position we already saw in a previous video, when we talked about the pawn structure. In that video, we looked at the two main plans for black. One, expanding on a side with more space. The other, changing the central pawn structure with e5 and then expanding on the king side. These are textbook ideas, easy to understand, easy to justify. But if you check this position with the engine, you'll notice that its top choice is knight h5. For a master, it's a very subtle idea. Instead of choosing the pawn break right away, the engine first wants to see where the bishop goes. But on a very basic level, a beginner just sees the knight attacking an undefended piece. The bishop moves, and then the same question comes back. What is black's plan? For a beginner, the whole point of knight h5 is unclear. They can try to memorize engine lines, but under all those moves, there is no clear structure, and there is very little to learn.